Hi, this is Erica Merrill, and I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video. And I am so excited to have with us today attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. We have not had her on for a little while, and we're so excited to have her back. And I just wanted to say welcome. We appreciate your being here this afternoon, Nicole.
Thank you. I've kissed everyone, so hopefully you get to learn something different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love today's topic. Today's topic is on the parenting class that people have to take when they go through a divorce. And I know when I went through my divorce, it was kind of surprising because I've already been a parent for 7 years. So why would I have to do this now? Do all of the people that go through divorce have to take a parenting class, or was this just a suggestion?
So in Massachusetts, anybody that has children must attend a parenting class. There are also situations in which parents that are not married also have to take the parenting class, but anyone going through divorce that has children must take it. It is a requirement. And generally, if the court doesn't see it happen, then you're not going to be entitled to any modifications later on.
Now, why did they come up with this? Were they seeing a lot of people that just didn't know how to parent? I mean, I can imagine that maybe in a couple, one person did more of the parenting than the other, as is usual, I think. But I mean, what is your take on it?
I think it's twofold. I think one is just to get a better understanding of what your children might be going through. What do they think about this divorce? You know, all too often it's all about me, 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 me. And the kids go, okay, so now I'm shuffled off to moms, now I'm shuffled off to dads. What am I supposed to do? And so it really kind of gives you insight, or hopefully gives you insight to say, this is what you can kind of expect. This is how you should be, you know, looking at your children, seeing if things are different. How can you meld together so that this united family that's now torn apart, how can they adapt so that the child isn't being torn as well?
Yes, and I think I agree with you. When I took the class, I think it was pretty sad. I mean, there were a lot of people that were sad in the class watching some of the videos and getting some of the information about what children go through. And I believe, like in my class, they even had a film with kids of all different ages talking about what they were going through. And I know in my own experience, like she was probably 5 or 6 at the time, that she had to start going back and forth, and she just kept saying, I just feel dizzy. I have to go back and forth all the time. So, you know, we had to come up with a kind of schedule where she could feel like she was settled in and got to be somewhere for a few days. So it's definitely an adjustment for them. And, you know, so many times I think the adults are just focused on what they're dealing with emotionally and financially. And you think the kids don't have feelings, but, you know, a lot of times they're the ones that pay the most.
Right. Exactly. The reality is, as adults, you've decided your relationship is over. All they know is I love mommy and daddy. What are you talking about? So they're trying to learn what's happened. A lot of times they do the kind of the blame game on themselves. What did I do to make mommy or daddy want to leave? So you have those situations where they don't understand that these two adults can't work together, can't live under the same roof. They just understand that they love these people, so why can't we work? Just make it work. And that's kind of their MO. So again, you have to try to understand where they're coming from and really develop a better way for them to move forward. You know, the other issue is, of course, dealing with the animosity and the hostility between the parties and how they're projecting it either indirectly or directly on those children and how that's going to affect them.
Oh, I agree. And, you know, I believe that sometimes this takes longer to happen than others, but eventually the parents bring other people into their lives, and whether they do it too soon or not, or the proper way, is, you know, often left up to chance. People don't realize, you know, what that does to a lot of children. I know for my parents were divorced, and I hated all my dad's girlfriends. I just did. I wanted my parents back together. Luckily, my child doesn't have that same stance, but she's still confused by it sometimes, as many children are.
Absolutely. It's one of those things that it's very hard. And again, the class is meant to try to get people to think about those things. I love to say, hey, look, at the end of the day, you really have to do this, this, and this. But if nothing else, it hopefully gets them to think, hey, my actions do have consequences, and maybe I should look at, the big picture. And again, how are my kids interacting? How is my spouse going to interact? How is that going to affect our future?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, I know that you see a lot of different types of couples. And so sometimes people say that, oh, we're friends, we're fine, this is a friendly divorce. And sometimes there's a ton of animosity. Now, and I know that there's always the knowing nod when someone says, we're friends, we're going to be able to talk about this forever, because everyone knows that eventually, even for a little while, things might break down during this process. And so, with that in mind, if they're friendly at the time that the classes need to be taken, are they allowed to take the class together?
No, it's actually prohibited. They want to have a free communication. So again, even though my spouse might be getting along with me, I want to be able to say, you know what, he really did this move and it's really jerky. And you're going to be able to talk to people that are going to be able to interact and communicate. And you don't want that good relationship now to be hostile. So they specifically exclude spouses. It's one of the questions when you're signing up, that they ask you for your spouse's name, and then they cross-reference it, and they will make you take a different class at that location, or obviously you can go to another location.
Yeah, that's true. They break you right up into groups and people talk about all different issues as if it was a workshop. I could see where that might be a little bit hairy and where you might not say what you're thinking if your ex is sitting in the next group. We've talked a little bit about what you learn in this class, and we've talked a little bit about, learning about how the children feel and how you should handle it, and good suggestions on that. Is there anything else that you learned from the class?
Hopefully you learn a lot. I think one of the other big takeaways is, again, just not projecting the hostility, the animosity, the hatred, whatever it is. Whether you're saying it in a room full of your family and the child's in her bedroom that's right next door, or you're saying it in front of the child that says, your dad's such a jerk. Those are the types of things that kids are going to internalize. They're going to feel that stress. It's not a helpful relationship. You're not going to be able to grow and get the best out of your life if you hold on to that. But I think it also allows you to give a way to not have that hostility. Don't project that on the children. Don't have that relationship where it's going to impact them. And I think it also expresses exactly what that type of situation does for children. You're going to learn exactly how your statements affect those children and how it can realistically affect them for the rest of their lives. And I have my best friend that, her parents still 35 years later can't sit in a room together. God forbid. You'll never be at the same function. So it's something that she has to go, oh, so do I want to invite mom or do I want to invite dad? And no child should have to deal with that. So this class is trying to nip it in the bud, if you will, and be able to get somebody to grow and not have to have that for the rest of their lives. And hopefully the kids won't suffer as a result of that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I just remember one time somebody said to me, well, I won't say who, but it was somebody's parents' new wife said, well, you're having a birthday party for your child, but you're inviting your mom, so your dad can't go. So why do you keep doing that? Why don't you? It's like, well, everyone's invited. If you don't want to go or you want to do something separate, that's fine. And that was, her response.
Yeah, you get a lot of that. And again, it depends on where's the kid feeling it. Is the kid feeling like it's being pulled, or are they actually feeling like, hey, I get two parties? You really got to look at that and see how that's affecting the child. Sometimes that's the greatest thing in the entire world, because again, I get 2 celebrations, I get twice the amount of presents, if you will. But other times they see that, hey, this person's not invited and there's a problem.
That's true. And I think that, sometimes if there is a lot of animosity, it's better that they don't have the party together. But I mean, and hopefully things change over time. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's about communicating with the child. So when in the process should they take the parenting class? Because I know that these processes can take a year, 2 years, 3 years sometimes.
You're required to take it before the pretrial. So realistically, if you're going through a divorce, you're going to have 6 months from date of filing to the pretrial date. So realistically, you should be taking it in that time frame. Now, again, there's the little caveats that it may be extended, and it may be, until the divorce is final, which may be a year. But from my perspective, regardless of what the statute says, you should be taking that within, 3 or 4 weeks of you being served with a divorce or filing for the divorce. Reason being is, start off on the right foot. Start out with learning the best you can do for your children, and then understand exactly what that class is going to teach you and start implementing those things. Simple things of implementation is, it's not my child. You didn't have the child by yourself. So stop saying that. Just little techniques like that can help you and help your family overall. So my suggestion is always take it as soon as you can.
I agree, because most likely you've started that co-parenting right away the second somebody moves out. So you need that information now.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me, is there anything else you should be doing besides the class or with the class?
So, obviously, again, that's a required class. Again, if you're talking about just paternity cases, you may also take that class. My recommendation is, again, you have a child. The same rules apply. If you've ever lived with that person who's not your spouse, go and take the class. It doesn't hurt. It's the same principles whether you're married or you're not. If you cohabitated, it's important. There are definitely other classes out there. There's a lot of nurturing mother classes and nurturing father classes, and obviously they're gender specific. I would recommend taking those. It's not required. But again, if you have any issues, or you have that level of animosity, and you're just so frustrated with your ex, this gives you a home to vent. Usually those are 12-week programs, so they're a lot more extensive. But you can go there, you can be yourself, you can talk about these situations. You can, get other people's insight. So I don't think any of those other programs hurt. Again, not required, but why not make yourself the best person you can be so that your children can have the best relationship with both of their parents?
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, in the end, it's all about the kids and making sure that they're okay with everything, even though mommy and daddy are splitting.
Yeah, and I think the big part of that is really, again, you're learning something. There's no reason that all of us, we all, whether you hate school or you love school, it really doesn't matter. You should always be educating yourself. So again, if it's something that's going to better yourself, you go and you get training when you want to do fitness. Guess what? It's the exact same thing. You're going to get training on how to deal with these issues that you never thought you were going to have to address. So it's worth it, in my opinion. Obviously, other things you can do is, there are other extensive education classes, whether they're specific to, parenting, or if you have any problems, whether it be counseling just for your own mental health, which is always a good thing, because divorce is draining. That's the bottom line. Breakups are draining. Separations are draining. There are things that you're not going to be your best person. I guarantee you will not be your best person. So you need to take care of your mental health as well. So I always recommend, go to a counselor, if nothing else, peace of mind. Now I have somebody completely confidential that I can complain about. And, they're going to sit there and listen, but they're also going to hear you. So those types of things, if you have issues with, hey, look, I'm not the best person and maybe I've lashed out a little too much, talk about maybe going to a batterer's class, anger management classes, anything that you need to help you become the best person is what you really need to do. And obviously that's on a case-by-case basis, but it's certainly something that I always talk about. I'm going to recommend it. Again, you can kind of take it or leave it. But at the end of the day, guess what? The judge may very well say, no, I need you to take an extensive parenting class, which is the Nurturing Fathers and Mother class. I need you to go to anger management. So the court can order these things anyways. But from my perspective, if you nip it in the bud and you start taking these classes, it's going to better you so that when we get to the court, the judge isn't going to say those things, and the judge is going to see a side of you that says, hey, this person isn't the person when they walked out the door.
And that makes a lot of sense. Are there any really big mistakes that people make, even though they take this class? Like, what would you say some of the big mistakes people make with their children when they are going through a divorce?
Biggest one is tell your mother that she's blah, blah, blah. I give her money to support her. You don't need that. You ask her for the money. Those are the types of things that I just cringe, as does every other judge. Nobody wants to hear that. Do not tell your children about something that your spouse or your ex is doing. Again, they're children for a reason. You're an adult. Start acting like it. Because unfortunately, what's going to end up happening is the judge is going to say, I'm going to transfer custody because you are putting the children in the middle. You are harming them physically and emotionally to the point that you're not in a good environment, and that's not in the best interest of the children. So stop it now. Think about your actions. And again, if you know that they're in the house, they can hear. I don't care where they are in the house, they can hear.
Yeah, it's amazing what they hear, and they don't say anything right away. Sometimes it comes out months later and you're like, where did you hear that? They might say, well, you, but they hold it in and they listen to everything, even when you don't think they're listening.
And they're really, really good at internalizing it. So again, when you're saying it, that, my ex did this, and you're having a conversation with your girlfriend and they're upstairs in their bedroom playing, don't mean that they don't hear that you said, yeah, Dad, my husband was such a jerk. I can't believe he did this, this, and this. They've heard that, and they're not going to necessarily forget it.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, it's better to just take the high road and let them find out for themselves later on in life when they are age appropriate.
Couldn't have said it better.
So are there any other things you'd like to say about this topic before we leave? I know that sometimes you have stories. I mean, honestly, we have touched on parental alienation, and I think a big part of that class is to avoid parental alienation, and because that is illegal. And so you've seen people do it. I mean, is that a pretty common situation?
It is. And the problem is, again, parental alienation, where does it come from? It comes from that animosity, it comes from that hostility, it comes from that hatred. It comes from those things because, again, most of us, we can go and live our lives and we can do all this stuff, but this person, oh my God, they have so wronged me. And it just comes from that level of, I see red. Every time I see your face, all I can think about is red, and I want to kill you. And so again, that's projected. And that's where that alienation comes from. And again, what's going to end up happening is judge is going to say, nope, you lost custody. And guess what? You don't want to be the person that hears that. Because I can tell you, I've tried those cases where the person is screwed up and you're going, you got to jump through these hoops. But I didn't do anything wrong. No, you did. But I didn't do anything wrong. No, you understand that your actions have consequences. And as a result, the judge felt that you were not in the best interest of the children, changed custody over to the other parent. And now you have to jump through all these hoops to show that you're a better person now. So if you don't nip it in the bud, it's going to come back to bite you. It's going to be something that's going to haunt you. And ultimately, again, you could be looking at supervised parenting time, and that could be, 10 years down the road that you're still having supervised parenting time. I have one right now that dad didn't see the kids for 3 or 4 years. Then he saw at a supervised center. And now we're finally at unsupervised, but he still doesn't have overnights. And this is 4 years later. So do you want to be that person that you get to see your children for 3 hours a week? Or do you want to be the person that your kids can go, Mommy, Daddy, I love you. I'm so happy that we get to spend time together. That's really what you want. So think about the big picture.
I agree. And you know what? I just had a friend that kind of went through a tough situation with her ex really needing some supervision, and the attorney did not represent her in the right way. And I told her about you, but I think she's going to use you next time. That is for sure. Because, you know, you really want to make sure that somebody's representing you and the situation the right way, and not having situations get all twisted up and people calling the police on one another, people getting restraining orders. I mean, it can just get so darn messy when you're going through this process. Like you said, when there's animosity and, you know, people are trying to split up assets and split up custody, and it's just not going their way. So it's definitely, it's tricky. And that's why I would say if you have that situation, you really need to talk to Nicole and her staff, because they are amazing and they keep up on all the latest changes in the law, and they know the best strategies to get a positive outcome for you and your children, if you have children.
And I absolutely agree. I think the only other thing that you need to say is you need to listen to me. I do know what I'm talking about. I have been doing this for 20 years, and it's one of those things that people will not listen. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard it say, oh, Nicole, you know, I know you told me this, but now 6 months later, we're in this situation. How do I get myself out? So I'm always a proponent to say, hey, look, if you have some questions, you send them over to us. Let us take a look at them before you start doing these actions, because your actions do have consequences. And when you make that decision, sometimes it's too late. And it's very hard for me to try to dig you out of a hole, rather than you taking the proactive time to go, hey, is this the right thing to do?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I can definitely vouch for, listen to what Nicole says. She does know. And if you're going through it for the first time, she's already been through it hundreds and hundreds of times. She knows what's going to happen. So listen to her. And on that note, I just want to say thank you so much for talking about what can be a really tough topic. Nobody likes to think about the suffering that the children have during this, and the parents as well. I mean, nobody likes to think about that with divorce. And, you know, you really put a smile on your face and you just say it like it is, and when it needs to be said. And I think that it's just, you're an amazing person to work with. So hopefully people will give you a call or refer you over if they know someone in a tough situation when it comes to family court.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week.